My Life Between Lives story from Newton Train Institute practitioners.
I see a whole change in the thrust of searching for answers about who we are and why we're here. And I think it's wonderful, and I just hope the movement continues to expand.
Let us expand the universal consciousness together with a My Life Between Lives story presented by the Michael Newton Institute.
Welcome to My LBL Story. My name is Ekomananda. I am your host. Today we have special guest, Tonya Swan. Tonya specializes in past life and life between lives regression hypnotherapy. Author of Heaven and Earth, How It All Works. She has explored the spiritual realm over 350 times at the age of 11. Tonya conducts classes on the afterlife and shares her experiences via podcasts and radio shows. She also teaches intuition development and Reiki, leveraging her health professional background since 1975. Her expertise includes hypnotherapy, biofeedback, brainwave meditation, and Reiki. She now offers services in Issaquah, Washington, servicing clients in person and remotely. A big warm welcome to Tonya.
Thank you so much for welcoming me. I'm so grateful to be here and to share my story, hoping that it will help others that are on the path of self-discovery and help them to find more and learn more. I know I'm like that. I'm always wanting to learn more.
Always wanting to know more. Don't we all have so many questions about what happens on the other side? What happens after life? And you had that incredible experience at the age of 11. Tell us what happened.
Yes, I did have a very incredible experience. I was being baptized, and I was in a small town in Oregon, and they had me in a creek. We were wearing these beautiful little gowns. It was so angelic looking at people walking down this hill to the creek in their little white gowns. But as we did the baptism, when they put me under, when it was my turn, he put me under the water. And the minute I went under the water, I went into the spirit realm. And I didn't know where I was. I just knew that I was somewhere that wasn't where I was before that moment. And there were these beings all around me. They were standing around me in a circle, and they were loving me, and they were kind, and they were beautiful, and they were just so peaceful. And I thought, this is not Earth. People don't feel like that here on Earth. So this is someplace else. And I couldn't figure out where I was. And so at a certain point, I finally jumped up because I was a little startled by being in that other world so quickly. And when I jumped up, then I got out of the baptism, and I didn't think any more of it after that. But the beings that were there then started to talk to me. And I could hear them. And my sister, who was born with sight, she could see them. And we tried to figure out who they were and what they were, and we couldn't figure it out at first, but we knew they only liked certain topics. They would come if we talked about God or angels or anything spiritual like that, and being part of a revolution. And I have no idea how we knew to talk about a revolution at 11 and 9 years old, but we were certain we came to be part of a revolution. And they began to talk to me. One of them in particular kind of singled me out after a while and started telling me to hold the place between waking and sleeping. And I was like, well, I don't know if I can do that, but I'll try it. So I did. And it took me months. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. It took every erg of energy in my being to hold that place. And I would do it when I was going to sleep. As I started to fall into sleep, I would just hold that space. There's a little place where you click over into sleep. And then just before that is that space that they wanted me to hold. And then when I woke up, I'd do the same thing. The minute I woke up, I would freeze and try to hold that place. And now I know that's probably theta, but really deep theta. And once I was able to hold that space, I could see the teacher, I could see the guide. And my sister always had that ability, but I didn't. And so when I could see him, then he reached his hand out to me, and he took me by the hand out of my body, and we would travel up to the spirit realm. And then he just let me do whatever I wanted to do. As far as if I had a question, he could create whatever space he needed to teach me in, create a whole room, and then in an instant just change it again with his thought. So whatever I needed to do, like I was having a lot of trouble in school, and he began to help me with my homework, and I became a very, very good student. And then he would teach me things like, I remember the very first lesson, because that was the most fascinating thing to me. He showed me a room. It was like a study. And then he showed me that all of the things in this room were not made out of things that were solid, that they were made out of little particles of light, and most of it was empty space. And that what I thought was solid wasn't solid at all. And I didn't take chemistry until many, many years later, and then I learned about this. But at 11, I was just fascinated. And when he brought me back to my body, and every day he would bring me back to my body and put me in it, and then he would disappear. And we did this every day after school for about a year. I would go to my little loft where I have my bed. I would lay down. I'd put myself in that state, and I got to where I could hold it at will as long as I wanted. And then he would come and he would take me for these lessons. And I remember I came back after that first lesson. I took my hand and I hit my bed, and I thought, this is not real? Is that possible? Everything in this room is not anything but light, and it can be transformed sort of like he does, but it doesn't do that here. It doesn't move that fast. It doesn't change that fast. So that was another question. Why doesn't it move? So another question the next day, why don't we have it moving down here like you do? You change the whole room. You take me to all these different places in the flash of an eye. How come I can't do that down here? And the explanation for that was because we can't do that in the realm that we're in, because our thoughts are what we use to create with our emotions. And if we did that, we might hurt each other. So we slow it down. So everything's moving very slowly compared to that realm. So that was very interesting. And I did that for, like I said, about a year. And then one day when he was bringing me back, and there were many, many lessons. I made a list here of about 44 lessons that he gave me that I just thought of to remember in case you needed to know some of them. But there was a day where I had been doing it for that year, and I was coming back into my body, and he said to me, love your mother, love your sister, love your mother, love your sister. And he kept repeating that. And as I was falling back into my body and hearing him say that, I was like, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's going to happen. And as I hit my body, yeah, as I hit my body, I heard the door open, and it was my mother. And she said, what are you doing? And I told her, because I don't lie to my mother. I told her everything. And she said, that's not good. You must never, ever do this again. You must promise me you will never, ever do this again. You must not go to that place. She was very full of fear because she didn't understand what was happening. And so she took me to the psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist listened to my story, and the man had to have had a near-death experience because he was eating every word that I said. It was validating him. And I could see it on his face, but he couldn't say anything to me because he was a psychiatrist and he wasn't allowed. So he just said, uh-huh. And at the end, he told my mother, she's perfectly sane. There is nothing wrong with what she's saying. It's very linear, sequential, and linear, sequential is not crazy. And she has very whole thinking. It's not scattered. It's not fragmented. It's very pure. And this has been a beautiful experience she's been through. And she just has a very good imagination. Don't worry about her. But my mother was not convinced. She made me swear I would never go back to that world. And so I didn't. And I didn't promise her not to talk to my teacher, my guide, the one that I had worked with so much. And so I continued to speak to him telepathically all of my life. And then when I was about 18 years old, I became very ill. I had a kidney problem. And it was an infection that I had for like almost 2 years, and they couldn't get rid of it. They just give me drugs, and then I would get it again. And I was getting so worn out that I went to the library and the health food store to look to see if I could find some information about something I could do other than what the doctors were doing. And I did find something. I found that there are allergies, and I found I was allergic to dairy. But to do that, I began to understand that there are different diets and different ways of thinking about food and stuff. So I went to the library and began reading everything about health. And right next to the health section was the spiritual section. So I started reading the Portland Library out of their whole section on spirituality. And I ran out of books. And somehow, some way, I didn't get a book on St. Francis. But I kept looking at every one of those and going, well, they're similar. Some of the things they went through make sense to me because of what I've been through, but I still don't understand what happened to me. I don't understand what that was and where I was and why I have this person talking to me. I don't understand it. I want answers. I want to know. So I kept reading and eventually ran out of books. And then I went to a monastery, a Catholic monastery, because I knew they had books. And I asked them if I could take a book home, and they said no, but you can look at one here. The first book I picked up in their library was a leather-bound version. I opened the book to the picture of the person that had, of the being, St. Francis, that had been working with me, that asked me to hold that space. He was real. He existed. He had a picture. I was so excited. I put the book away and I ran home all the way to my house to tell my sister, they're real. These beings are real. This is not something we made up. And so then I began searching for the understanding of what was this world. And finally, I began to find information that gave me answers. Some through the Summit Lighthouse, which is an organization of the Ascended Masters. And later, I found Michael Newton's books. And when I found Michael Newton's books, I felt like I had come home. I had found all the answers to all of my questions. And the world that I knew existed for everyone, not just for me. And I wanted to help people see it. Because there were so many times that I wanted to share the world, this beautiful, incredible world, with other people. And they didn't want to hear it. They didn't understand it. And they just told me to be quiet, to not talk about such things. But here was a book with all of that information and explaining to me where I went and why I had this guide and what the purpose of all of that was. And so then I decided eventually to do past life work. And after that, I went on to do the LBL training so that I could help other people to see what I saw and to feel what I felt and to know who they really are. Because I realized after all of that experience that we aren't what we think we are. When we're walking around here on this planet and we think we're just a body, that's only a little piece of who we are. And that people need to know it and that they need to understand that a lot of what they've been taught is not truth. And they made people fear this other world and the death process. And it's not a terrible place and it's not a terrible thing. And so I've made that my mission to get that out to people, to tell them what I saw and give my testimony.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank
My
you.
whole body is feeling this goosebump, this energy. I can sense these beings all just around with us. I wanted to ask about this world, this 3D world that we all many consider this reality, the waking state, this not a moving situation versus to the dimension that you went. It moves so fast. Can you expand on that? Why these two worlds are so different in terms of your personal experience?
I just remember that very similarly to when we go under in hypnosis and the clients go under in hypnosis, that time holds still. It's not moving anymore. Down here, it was always moving. And when I would come back after being gone 20 minutes to an hour, it felt like I was gone a few minutes because it's such a different feeling of time. And when I was in that world, it's like there was no time, yet there was a sense of it that went on forever. So there were these two feelings that I would pick up. And it's just a very different feeling to be in that world. It's like it's endless, but it's not even really there.
It's endless, but it's not even there. I'm sensing in it took me back to my meditation or hypnosis experience. It is the key. Again, okay, it reminds me about the stillness is the key to turn or open the door to another realm.
It is, and that's why I was asked to hold that space between waking and sleeping, because that's the place of no time. And it's like when you go there in hypnosis or in meditation, there is no time. It stops.
Yes, no time. It may be quite a strange concept or obscure concept to many, and even as we practice meditation, we still need to remind us on a daily basis, because when we go to the other room, we experience no time, or we take the clients to the other room and they experience time being shrinked.
Yes. And they don't want to leave. They want to just stay in that beautiful space.
Fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. When you first being put in underwater, you got to the room immediately. How did you feel as a child?
As a child, I was just shocked at first, and I didn't move. I just laid there, and I was trying to figure out where I was and who these beings were. I had never seen them. They weren't like people. People are mean. People can be nice, but they can be mean. But these beings were not mean at all. There was not a mean bone in their body. You could feel that the love they had for you was so deep, that they cared about you clear to your soul, clear through every cell and atom of your being. They were loving you. And it wasn't conditional. With humans, it was always conditional. You had to do what they said to be loved. But with them, they just loved you, just for being.
Unconditional love. It's something we trying to impart. We're trying to modeling that energy. It is such a wonderful, wonderful experience, and truly, we are so grateful for you to share that intimate experience. And you've gone just that a year 350 times, and does that exhaust the body?
Yes, it could have, but it didn't. I felt fine. And there were so many wonderful lessons that I was given to help me to learn to do what you're saying, to be able to try and embody being like them, because that's why we do what we do. We look at them, and when in the spirit, those who have gone before us, and we want to be like that. They're so beautiful. They're so loving. We just want to be like that too. And so my teacher would do a lot of things to help me to learn to do that. One thing he would do is what I would call looking back. He would tell me to, when I would get embroiled in something, I could hear him say, step back. And what he meant by that was to pull my energy out of the situation that was more of a negative situation, and to step back into my soul energy and look at it from a soul perspective. And interact with the person from that level, and don't interact on that human level that they're pulling me to.
Step back.
step back. And so sometimes I would be starting into something, I could hear him yell, step back. He would almost startles me sometimes. But then I would remember to go back into that spiritual place and to have this interaction from that spiritual place and not from that just physical. The other one he would give me is he would always show me this iceberg. And he'd go, this is the tip. This is the tip. This is what you're seeing of this person that you're having this issue with. Remember, all that's below there, this big part down here, this is all they've been through. You're seeing the tip. You're only seeing the pain that's resulting from what they have been through. You must have compassion for all they have been through, and then you will have no trouble with the little tip of energy you're handling right now.
Oh, that's beautiful. We're only seeing the tip. We actually don't know the entire story of what people are going through. That's
what he was saying. To remember all that they've been through. And he had showed me many times, like I asked him questions. I remember one about there was a man that lived next door to us at the time, and he was really angry. He was always angry. Every time I saw him, he was angry. And I thought, I've never done anything to him. Why is he angry at me? And so I asked my teacher, I said, why is this man so angry? And he showed me his lives. He just threw them out like scattered stars. And I could see them all at once. And all the things that had happened to him had made him bitter and angry. And he hadn't gotten over them. And that's why he was feeling that way. So when I saw the man from then on, I remembered what my teacher said. And I tried to have compassion for his suffering. And when I did that, he opened up to me. And he started to talk to me and befriended me. And it was really good for him.
We share love with others. It absorbs other people's sadness, trauma, all of this unhealed energy stored within the body. I always, attempt, if I may say so, and to share this lesson. Only love heals.
Yes, that was what they showed me repeatedly in so many different ways.
And from that year, total transformation. Apart from your sister, did your mother or father or other people were aware of this?
Not that I know of. I know that my grandfather saw things, elemental things in his garden, and people thought he was crazy. I didn't think he was crazy. I figured they were probably real. I'd never seen them, but why not? Why wouldn't there be fairies and gnomes in your garden? I was now aware that there were angels and masters and teachers and all these other beings in another realm, so I figured he could be perfectly fine. My sister was born seeing auras and seeing the other side. She saw the world as both, which was very stressful for her because she saw all the darkness. Like if she looked at a person, she could see everything they ever did in this life. And it was really hard for her to see all of that. And she could see dark energies and light energies. And it was hard for her to see the dark energies. And eventually it caused her to go crazy. She actually did lose her mind.
I'm sorry to hear about that. We send her love and wish that wherever she is, perhaps the spirit has a plan to experience, however the body we may experience suffering, struggle from moment to moment, time to time. However much we meditate, I feel like so long that we have a body, we live in a mundane life, we still encounter this sadness, trauma, pain in the bodily journey. And we just love one another to the best capacity as we can, help as much as we can.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
I agree.
I agree.
And with my sister, it's interesting now that I've been able to do the hypnosis work, we were able to take me to talk to her in her soul body. And she explained to me that she had been dependent on me for many lifetimes and that this was her lifetime. She had to be on her own. And that's why she created the situation for her higher good. And I said, okay, I understand. I'll see you when it's over.
Wow.
And that really helped me to let go, because before that, I just was so sad. But now I'm happy for her accomplishing her goal.
Yes. It reminds me my own story. My brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He had a out of body experiences that I did not know. Once he said he was out of body for 15 days. I'm like thinking, what? And this story only was told to me when I began walk on my spiritual path, became a spiritual healer. And he knew that only I physically in this body, in this world, in his environment, there was no one who could explain anything like spiritual information, knowledge, and share with him. So he knew instinctively he could come to me. I could hold space for him. I had no idea. That was 2 years when into my spiritual journey. And I just sat there silently and just comforted her. Because he had a many moments he just wanted to kill himself, and he pulled that over. And so I have been very proud of him. And he had a 10 years gambling journey, and that was very, very hard for him and for all of us. And I was not spiritual before I walk on my path today. We just kept on supporting him money, because that was all he was after. And it cost the entire family's fortune, everybody is down to zero because of that journey. And now walking on the spiritual path, it felt such a blessing. However, it looks like it's a painful journey. And him, by having that habit, bad habit, gambling, or it's habits, not a bad habit, it's just an experience that pushed me to go on further on my spiritual journey. And I had to learn my relationship with money, let go. That's part of it. There are different layers of the lesson, and it's really such a blessing when your family member or whoever, even that, including people we don't know, that they are struggling. They may be the perpetrator as well, and there's stories behind. We truly don't know what exactly the lesson might be unless we begin to do this sort of work. Such a blessing.
It's so true. It's such a blessing that we can go and look and find out why, because understanding why makes all the difference for people. And a lot of times just understanding it helps them to just heal it. I've seen that a lot in my practice. There's so many people that they've had things and they didn't know why they had them. And once they understood it, it just disappears. They don't need it anymore. Or they understand that they do need it and this is their path. And just understanding that, yes, there's a purpose to it. It's not just random. We don't just have something.
Yes, everything's got a reason or a purpose behind it for what we see the story.
Yes. And similar to yours, one of my recent clients was having really bad anxiety. And on my 1 to 10 scale, he was a 10 plus. And it was affecting him severely in his family and his work. And we did some work with looking at the whys through the LBL process. And he was able to see from understanding from his guide that this was for him to not get lost in the world, because he's a deeply spiritual person and he was going on a path that was totally materialistic. And this was a way to pull him back and bring him back to searching in his soul to find the answers and to find himself again. And he was a deeply, deeply spiritual person, having had some incredible experiences with ascended masters. And so that gave him a feeling of gratitude for having this anxiety. And it really did help his healing. He's now sitting at a 3.5 on my 1 to 10 scale. And this is only a few months ago. So he's getting better and better as he works his life around in a new way.
How amazing. Now, from your 11 years old experiences to when you were 18, you began to have this health crisis, and which led you to become a health professional working in that field. How do you connect the purpose behind everything that happened since the age of 11?
For me, I've always been a healer. My mother used to tell me that I would go in the hospital and talk to the doctors and nurses like I knew them. And I did. I felt like I've already known these people. And the explanation for that is that when I was in the spirit realm, I got to see that I'm in a group of healers. So there's a group of 5 of us that work together, and we bring healing of different, more, I don't want to say advanced, but the new age of healing to the planet. It's been here before, but we bring it back. So that's the mission of our group, and that's called a mission group. And I have had the pleasure of meeting all of my mission group in this life. And they are all doing wonderful work. I'm so proud of them. And so that's been something that I've always been on a path of. It's something I teach when I'm out of my body. And when I'm working in the spirit realm, my job is to help people when they come back from trauma. And so I do a lot of that in my work here in the physical. So they go together, and all of the spiritual is just to help me to understand that there's more to life. It's not just about the physical body. I need to look at the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. All of those are important. And I can't be looking at just one, because it usually is predominantly in one or two. And if I'm looking at, say it's a physical problem, I think, and I'm looking only at the physical, but it's really an emotional problem, I'm not going to help them. I can do all the physical things I want and it won't work. But if I address the emotional, the physical can go out as well as the emotional. So just finding where it's from. And from a spiritual vantage point of talking with the guides and talking with the council and with the soul group and others up in the spirit realm, we can find out more about it so that we can know what's the purpose. And then we can go in a different direction to help heal it physically if we need to, or just understanding it maybe will heal it.
So from your expertise and the physical illness, this pain or conditions, diagnosis, what is your approach to cure them?
It just depends on the person. I really tailor things to that person. And I use muscle testing, AK work. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I use that and my intuition to decide where to go. And intuitively, I can be looking at a whole page full of stuff that they've written to me, and something will go zoom. My eyes will go right to where I feel I need to go. And I'll start exploring that, and that turns out usually to be the problem. And it's an exploratory journey, because sometimes you go towards that one, but there's another piece. And so you work on that part, and then there's this other piece, then you go to that and work on that part. So it's not always one thing, but can be several. And it's a lot about what they need to learn. And this is their journey to learn it and assisting them in getting that. And so I'm really their assistant in their path of exploration. It's not something that I do. But sometimes healing it just blows my mind. And I know that, from my teacher, that things are energy. It's not physical. But then I live in this physical world, and I look at this desk and I go, it seems really very physical to me. And so it's hard sometimes to remember, but I've had experiences that have just told me that that's not the truth. I remember when I was working with Reiki, and I had worked with this gal with a lot of different things. She had gone from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane. And she was doing really, really well. And then she had a carotid artery break, which means the carotid artery, your major artery here, broke open, and she was bleeding out. And they rushed her to the hospital, and the doctor said she won't last until morning. And the family called me because I had been working with them for a very long time, and they would become friends too. And they said, we know that she would want you to be here to say goodbye. She's unconscious, but please come and say goodbye. And so I came to the room, and I sat across the bed from her on the other side, where the family was right by the door. There was a bed, and then we were on the other side. And her sister was sitting next to me. And I remembered that her sister was a Reiki master. And I said to her, just out of compassion, these people, her relatives, they are suffering so much. They are so distraught. Why don't we do some Reiki for them? And so we began to run the Reiki, but the Reiki was having nothing to do with going to them. It went straight for her neck. And I could see this picture in my mind of a tube with a hole, and a thing would go over the hole, and it would do the same thing again over and over. I would see the tube, I would see a hole, and something going over the hole. And I was thinking to my mind, that's impossible. That can't happen. But I thought what my Reiki teacher told me, you must stay out of the way. You let the Reiki do what the Reiki does. You are not the healer. It is the infinite is the healer. And so I just kept running the energy until it felt like it was time to stop, when it slowed down, and it was about an hour and a half. And I said goodbye to everybody, and I left and went home. The next morning, I got a phone call, and her nephew says, I know what you think I'm going to say, but I'm not going to say that. That thing sealed itself over, and she's fine. And she's alive today.
Amazing.
I know, but things like that, you just go, how is it possible? But it is. Energy is real.
Well, energy has no limit, has no physical, material boundary, and that's what I say to clients. I said, Zoom is perfectly fine. It's actually easier. You don't have to travel, and recording is easier, and there's tons of benefit. Just do it at your home in your comfortable, familiar environment and receive healing from the infinite love.
That's very true. And that's the one thing I love about Reiki, because you can do it from anywhere. I remember working on my mother-in-law. She had a stroke, and she was way far away. She was way down in Oregon, and we live up here in Washington. And I was like, well, I need to help her. And my husband was like, you have to do something. I was like, okay. So I put myself in a very deep trance, and I went to her bedside, and I was there in spirit and began to run Reiki on her. She didn't know I was doing it first, but then she kind of figured it out, and she started helping me. And I was really amazed that this woman, who I didn't have any idea had the spiritual side of her, was a very powerful spiritual being. And so together we worked on her, and it was only on her left big toe. The Reiki would go nowhere else but her left big toe. And we worked on it for, I don't know, an hour or so. And then the energy slowed down, and I left. And during this time, we had a conversation. I said to her on the inner, your son wants you to stay. She said, I don't want to stay. I'm done here. And I said, well, what about your children? She said, no, they do not need me. I'm done. And I said, what about your husband? No. And then I thought, what could I say to her that might make her want to stay? All in accordance with God's holy will, I always say that. So I said to her, if you stay, your husband, who has never lifted a finger in the house, he only works in the yard and does the men's work, but he's never cooked a meal. He's never taken care of anyone. He would grow a tremendous amount if he had to take care of you. She said, I'll stay. And she got better, and he had to take care of her, and he did change. He did change tremendously. And then later on, she was leaving again, about 2 years later. And I came to her again. And she said, oh, no, no, no. And I said, no, I'm not here to convince you to stay. I'm here to help you go home.
Wow, that's such a touching story, and it has so much wisdom in your story that each person's journey has its own time. Has a reason to stay, a reason to go, and when to go. If you're ready to go, if you finish your lesson, or if you're not, then there's always meanings behind these stories.
Yeah, so beautiful. And then eventually he passed over too, and I did see them together one day when I was walking. So beautiful, they're together in spirit.
Yes, beautiful stories. And so from that 11 years old experience, I feel like I'm in that world with that story in it. And from the moment that you were telling me that story, and did St. Francis predominantly teaches you healing method or other stuff as well?
Not so much healing methods. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me that life was a continuum and about past lives. And he let me play with this really fascinating machine, which I've not really heard anybody talk about. It was like a big video screen, and you could sit in front of it and you could put up your life now or another life, and you could play with that. So you could say, go back to when you had made a decision and done something with your life, and go back to that juncture and change it. And then you could see how the life would play out if you had done that. And so you could try on different scenarios.
I've heard of this technique. I can't remember some name. Maybe I'll find out a technique name and share with you later. It's a shamanic technique. What they do is they go into people's story. In what you experience, you could see the screen, use that screen to play your past experiences. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. But change them and see what a different outcome would be.
That's
if
it. So you didn't from that story, that experience. For example, let's say my father left me, yeah. And so that's abandonment issue. The child grew up without a father, without receiving the love from a fatherly figure. So the whole life would be chasing that energy. So we could go to the childhood, that picture, that memory, and change the story, have the father stayed or a loving stepfather replace the role, something like that, and heal that energy. And I've heard something shared by a peer practitioner.
Yes, and this wasn't so much for healing, but for understanding how our decisions make different things happen. And so maybe you think that the decision for your father to leave you was a bad decision, but when you play it out, it doesn't turn out as well. So because of, I had also that issue with my father, and because of the fact that I had made a large mistake and self-imploded in my last lifetime from someone who left and died, my husband, I was set up this lifetime for having my father leave me so that I would not trust men and not get that deeply involved so much that I would give up myself and do that again until I understood what I had done, and then I was allowed to love at that level again so that I didn't make that mistake. And I have now passed that test. That test was going to come again in this life, and I knew it was going to happen, but I wasn't prepared for who it was going to be. It was my son, my youngest son, and he was only 26 years old when he died, and that was last year. And I passed that test very well, and it furthered my ability on the path instead of disrupting it. It made me go deeper into spirituality in order to communicate with him, in order to be able to have a relationship still with him. And it totally helped me with the pain of losing him. So it helped me pass the test. So with that machine, you're able to look at all these different scenarios and see, was that really the best thing that would have happened or not? My father leaving me set me up for better for my life. It was his sacrifice. And when I understood that, in that moment that I got it, I had been praying for 2 years to be healed of my abandonment issue because I knew I was going to have a male child. So I prayed and prayed, and I saw this scenario played out like a dream for me in my mind. And I immediately understood it, and I forgave my father, and I sent him so much love. 3 days later, he came to my door. I hardly have seen him in my life. 5 times I've seen him. And he came to my door. He lived in Oregon, and I lived in Montana. And he came to my door. And we spent the day loving each other. And I forgave him completely. And I basically never saw him again, except one very brief hour. So, some of the things we think are the worst things for us turn out to be the best blessings. And you get to see that on that machine.
How wonderful.
Yes. And in my practice, I do what you say. I do go back, and if we have a real horrendous place that's really affecting the person in this life and they're wanting to heal from it, if I have a feeling to do it, and I don't do it in all things, I will go back and have them to the juncture where the trauma started, rewrite their story. And I have them do it. You say, we are now there. You take it from here. What happened in your story? And you rewrite it. And then I ask for that story to go over the other one and absorb the other one and transmute it into the new story. And for everything having to do that's come from that to be dissolved in accordance with God's holy will and the highest for the client.
Beautiful, lots of techniques as well, and I'm sure the audience can benefit greatly from your sharing and your teaching and all of your techniques. Apart from all of this, you learn how LBL experience help you to even transcend that you already knew.
It helped me more to bring it to other people, because even as much as I try, and I'm always looking for the next thing, I want to get them where I went, in the depth that I went. I am unable to get most people to go to that depth of that place. But I'm able to give them a glimpse. And even a glimpse of heaven is worth its weight in gold. So we can get into some of it and they can see that there's more to them, especially that there's more to them, like Michael Newton said this. The most important thing we do is we give them the understanding that there's more to them than just their physical body walking around this planet. That they are so much more, that their soul is so incredible. And they get that, and that they have help. They have guides. They're not alone. So many people think they're alone, and they find out they're not. And often they've been aware of their guides, and maybe they don't know it, but in the session they discover it. And so then they have that help, and then they get to see the spirit realm and understand their purpose, what they're doing down here, why they're doing it. And that makes all the difference for their life.
So beautiful.
The biggest blessing, if everybody could have an LBL and really understand their soul and really understand about past lives and how everything we do is never just something we just did and got away with in this life, for instance, with the negative things. And all of the beautiful things we do live on forever through the people we've given them to and through the energy that continues on. All of these things are eternal. And if they could understand that, so much would change. So much. And that's why our work is so important. Because if you understand these things, you can't do the negative things. You just can't do it.
Having to understand this, or the purpose behind each event, it is so enlightening. I have to say that it's so enlightening. It's a game changer.
Yes, it's a game changer. And this planet definitely needs that game changing. And I think this is the mission that my sister and I talked about, being part of a revolution. And I have to remember having been part of the French Revolution, hoping it wasn't a real one, a physical one. But I don't think it is. I think it is a spiritual revolution, and it feels like it matches the energy of the work that we're doing. That this is the revolution. Michael Newton's work is bringing the revolution in spiritual consciousness. And that's what we get to be part of. And that is the most exciting thing that we could possibly do. And I know that when I was up there, knowing people want to come in here, they want to embody. This is the most exciting time that's ever happened on the planet for a very long time. People want to be here and be part of it.
People want to be here and part of it. And we all agreed to be here, to be part of it.
Yeah, yes, we did.
That's it. That's it. And you talk about the heaven, the term, and tell us a bit more about what you consider is heaven.
That's a good question. I call it that because that's what a lot of people call it. And they understand when I say that what I mean, kind of. But their understanding of it is a little different than mine in the totality. So for me, it is another vibration. We are actually sitting in it always. But when we change our frequency, we move to that place. And so it's a frequency above ours, or if you want to look at it as a level. It's just that changing from one place to the other. And that's another thing we do when we help them expand their consciousness during a session, is we help them move into that frequency and feel what that feels like. And once you feel what it's like to live in that frequency, you don't want to leave it. And to maintain it, you must do good things. You must do positive things. Otherwise, you leave the frequency. And you want to be in the frequency, so you want to move towards it by doing the good things, helping others, having compassion, being loving, all of those things.
In that frequency, does that contain everything that you experienced in the spiritual realm?
From what I experienced when I was up there, it was very like, it's like everything is in a darkness in a sense, but it's not really dark like we think of dark. It's a matter. It's a something. And out of the something, everything else comes. And so my teacher, to create like a room, would just with his mind create out of that whatever he wanted. And then when he was done with that room or that thing, he would put it back into that place and it would become that matter again. And everything that was there, and I saw cities and beautiful places and places where people were coming to earth and places where people were healing and places where I work in healing. I saw all of these amazing places, and the library. I love the library. If you can remember, if you've seen the movie Beauty and the Beast, have you ever seen that movie?
I don't. I have not. I don't
Okay,
think
there's a library.
Yeah, I grew up in a different environment.
Yeah, you can Google the Beauty and the Beast library. And the library in that movie is the closest I've ever seen to that library. It is the most amazing and beautiful place. That's my favorite place. I like to hang out at libraries, which I did in this life also. But it's expansive. It has everything you could possibly want to know about anything. And so there's that beautiful library. As you go around, there's people, there's souls. I call them people, they're souls. And they're in groups. And it's just like here, we have friends, we get together, we do stuff. It just feels so natural. We create things. Like sometimes if we want to do a project, like we want to have a party, we can create whatever we want for the party. And so we may have been embodied together, especially in our groups, and we may want to create something of what we saw when we were here on Earth. And so we can just create that with our mind. And then we can just kind of use that, take forms that we can walk around and act just like we did when we were here on Earth. And we can share in that experience, but we can use it however we'd like to use it. And we can bring in past memories if we want to. Like we could dress up like something we were in one of the lifetimes with each other. And sometimes it's just kind of a fun and teasing kind of a thing too. So we can do that kind of thing. We can also do more serious things, but I saw a lot of that where we're examining what we did when we were here. And we talk about that as the life reviews. And we see that in not only the work with Michael Newton's work, but also in the near-death experience. And you see a lot of similarity in those, where people go to where they review the life that they've been living. And they see where things were very good for them and not so good for them, and where they might need to improve, and how they were working together. And it's amazing how it all comes together. Everybody is working with everybody else. And it's this conglomerate, and nothing, not even a second, not even an erg of energy is ever wasted. It's all being worked together for everybody's moving forward and moving more into that dimension.
Oh, wonderful. And it seems to me that this frequency is the canvas. We are all sitting on that canvas. And in that canvas, I'd call it the void space somehow, even you say the dark space.
Yeah. You call it the void space too.
Some call it the non-dual space, some call it the Sahaja, some call it heaven. So all these terms are somewhat, I think, possibly they are interchangeable. This space where there's seemingly there's nothing. There's no concept. Some people call it neither perception nor no perception. So this void space. From there, then everything can manifest. So where your intention goes, because we still have awareness, right? The experience of is
same as you do now.
Yes. From there, everything can manifest. So all of these possibilities can happen within that realm, and that possibility is anything you want, basically.
Kind of the nothing and the everything. It's because it's the energy that creates everything, but yet it feels like you said, like a void of energy. But it's kind of like the concept of God too. The concept of God, when I was up there, I could feel a presence, and it was aware of everything. It wasn't affecting it. It was observing. But yet I had a feeling that there was something I could get closer to. Like I could get closer to that energy. I didn't know quite how to do that, but I had a feeling that it had almost like a personality, but not exactly. Like a center or a focus or a concentration of that energy. But at the same time, it was part of everything. It's kind of like you said, the void and the everything. It's kind of the same with that concept.
Yes. In your opinion or in your experience, do they separate into different dimensions? Are they just like different departments?
I don't know. I only know what I experienced and what I've experienced with my clients. And I really don't know. I've really had that question myself. How does this dimensional thing work? They say there's a lot of dimensions. I know that as I've read some of the books on near death, some people weren't allowed in certain places, and I was allowed to go anywhere. So I was kind of like, maybe that's what they mean by the dimensions. As your consciousness goes to a certain place, you can go to different places, and that's the dimensions. I really don't know for sure. It's my biggest question. I want to know more.
I've heard different dimension system within the human mind's capacity. I've heard of 25 different dimensions, or there's 12, some say there's 100. And then the divine design typically kind of mentioned from the 5D grid and the 12D grid, which is 5-dimensional world, which is what we are predominantly is doing, creating new earth. I mean, your earth is already created. We are already there. I believe we are already there. And then we're helping people who are in this earth's physical third dimension to lift them to the 5D dimension. This is predominantly what we're doing. From 5D dimension, they expand to the 12D dimension. So yes, a lot to talk about, and a lot of things that we don't know. We don't know. So perhaps the audience can fill us with questions and informations if you are watching this, and comment on YouTube channel so that we get to expand as well all together, sharing our experiences.
Can I say one more thing about that?
Yes,
okay, yes. Okay. There's another thing about that is that when you're in a certain dimension, you only have a certain experience and understanding and awareness. But when you move to another one, there's another one. So when I was in that state, I had all this incredible knowledge. And I would come back to my body. And as I went back into the body, it would disappear out of my mind. My mind couldn't handle holding that. And I would come back into my body, as every day when I came back, I would be holding on to something. I am going to take this with me. I'm going to remember it. I'm going to remember it. And I would get back in my body, and sometimes I could remember it, and sometimes I couldn't.
I know. It's like I'm practicing my just like what you said, the initial teaching from St. Francis, holding the space between waking and falling asleep, the deep theta state, or we call trance, we call the esoteric world. Basically, is the practice of a lucid dream is to be aware that we are dreaming. So the conscious goes there, and mostly we don't, right? We know. We're dreaming, but we don't know we're dreaming. I've been practicing that, trying to remember my dreams. I'm getting a bit of a clue now after 6 months now practicing that.
I love that concept. Okay, because I used to be able to control my dreams. I was awake and myself in my dreams, and I could make things happen the way I wanted them to. But I don't do that anymore. But that's interesting. I wonder if you can go from that realm into that spirit realm. I've never tried that. My teacher told me when he bring me back to my body, he said, never do this by yourself. Always have your guide. Always have me with you. And so I never tried it another way, but that's fascinating.
Yes, you have St. Francis with you, and he's always with you, and you perhaps can do that. And because I typically do it on my own by myself, and my partner, he has gone to verify, if I may say, in meditation. So he sort of just gave me the instructions. So I've been practicing watching myself to falling asleep. That's his word. And often I doze off. But what I've been doing is just write my dream journal. And I now know that every night I dream. I work very hard in my dreaming state. There's so much things that we are trying to learn or trying to clean it off, trying to work it through.
Yes. Have you started flying yet? Can you fly in your dreams on purpose?
No, what I'm got a sense I've had to say after 6 months, I had to say, there's a sense that I am aware that I also have this bodily life. I also have this waking state. Because often in the dream that I'm aware that I'm a healer, like I was doing something else, I would have a different role. But there's a part of me know that actually I have this life. So that sort of awareness has been slowly emerging, and I think I need to.
Yes, yes, that's the first.
That's it. I'm sort of aware that I have this waking state. So it's slowly emerging. I think I need to grounding myself and stabilize in there, then slowly expand from there. Not flying yet. One day. One day.
Oh, you will. And that's so much fun. And I'll give you a hint. Don't try to do it. Just be it.
Ah,
If you try, it holds you to the ground.
okay. Just be it. Okay.
Yeah, just keep flying.
Just watch the body. When I was really, really dedicated to this practice, one evening I was practicing just watching my body. So what I noticed that I knew my body organ so well. Like I became my organ. My organ was speaking. Like I knew my body was producing chemicals. The body was releasing fluid, and the body was excreting waste. And I knew that. I'm like thinking, wow, this is fascinating. Like I became
It is.
organ, I became the particle. So that was one of the experiences.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes, I know my organ, which organ was not functioning, or most of my body was okay. But I had that really, really like a detailed look of my body, and it became that each particle in each organ part. And I thought, wow, this is fascinating. You also know that you are existing in the body sense, but the knowingness came through from my body cells. It's like, oh, you are capable to do this. I need to do more of that.
Yes, and that's beautiful. And then maybe you can do some healing in that way too. And I do that with people's bodies. I can go into their body and look around and see what's not working to help it to heal.
That's it. That's definitely something I can explore, or all of our audience you can explore as well by just simply watching the body falling asleep, but remain awake. So it takes a bit of a few goes, or two.
A few, yeah.
a few goes to get a hand of this experience. It's absolutely one of the incredible experience in this body. You can do it too. Yes, all of these things.
Yes. And then you're not limited by time and space anymore.
No, that's something that we are so grateful. And often and more so these days when I speak to a peer practitioner, we have the same understanding about Earth, higher dimensions, heaven, or Sahaja state, deep meditative state, you name it. And we merge these different worlds together. And we now can dance on this higher frequency. We're dancing onto it. Basically, it's like we don't experience much pain. We do, but we don't. It's huge blessing to be able to experience this and then sharing it with others.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
And that's so wonderful. And I wanted to come back to your book a bit more, Heaven and Earth, and how it all works. Perhaps sharing some of the insight, how it helps individuals understand the difference and how it helps people heal.
Well, it's a lot about what I experienced, somewhat of what we just talked about, but I go into what I actually saw there in the spirit realm and how we interacted in that space, and all of the different lessons that my teacher gave me in detail so that people can have those so that they can use them in their lives. Because, you know, I have benefited so much. I can't tell you so much. And I just want other people to have this. And my teacher kept bugging me, please write this book. Please write a book. Tell of your experience. And then he also told me to do things like this. He said, when you're asked to speak, speak. When there's an opportunity, speak. And I said, well, what am I going to say? And he said, just tell what happened to you. Tell your story from your heart. They will understand. So that's what I do in the book. I tell my story from my heart in hopes that it will help other people to have validation for what they've been through and to find things that they can use to help their life be easier and better.
Beautiful. And I think people who are still doubt that what the truth is really is, because everybody's reality is a little bit different, but let's just say I think truth is a word that is more relevant, more applicable to what we are trying to share through our individual experiences, and help you to finding your resonance, finding home, finding alliance, finding support, finding love, that to know that you are truly never alone.
Yes, and heal from the grief. So many people are having so much grief because the way that we approach death in this society doesn't give them the connection to the other side that they need to not have the grief so badly.
I have a few people come to me for grief recently. They've lost their loved ones. And when you are able to connect to the other side of the world, you connect to them. You feel their presence with you. And that's why we are having this wonderful therapies all around. And see Tonya, see anyone that is in your community, in your city, that is doing similar work. Life between life therapy, the way to go.
Absolutely. It's one of the best therapies I've ever done for myself and for my clients. You know, you can go to a medium, which is good in itself if you have a good medium, but to experience for yourself your connection to your guide and to be able to repeat that and have your guide in your life for the rest of your life, that is so wonderful.
Yes, and perhaps just explain to the audience the difference between a medium and a life between life therapy, the work that we do.
Oh, okay. So when a medium does their work, they look at what's happening through their mediumship eyes, where they can see into the other side or hear into the other side, into the spirit realm, and they will tell you what it is that your relative is saying. And you can ask questions of the relative, and they're kind of the in-between person between you and them. And then sometimes they'll get just insights that are really, really nice. And we did do that after my son died, and it was very helpful. But when you're doing the life between life therapy, you are actually making that connection. You are now becoming your own medium. You are making the connection to your guide, to your own soul, and to your helpers in heaven, whatever they are. There's all kinds of them. So and then meeting your soul group and getting to know who you're working with and why, and kind of what your group is about, which is really fun to know. And then your counsel, you know that they're there for you and that they're not this awful group of people that's judging you. That's not what they do. They're actually there to help you. So you have this whole team that's helping you to grow as a soul and to accomplish your goals. And just knowing that and having them is just amazing. Let's see what else about that. I think those are the main things, but knowing your purpose and getting your purpose in that, and a medium doesn't necessarily give you that, but you get that when you're doing your LBL work, and that is just so important. And you're knowing where you're at on your goals, your personal goals.
Definitely agree that LBL is so much more. You can imagine that if you become your own medium, which means you have immediate access to the other room, and the session is recorded, and you can listen back and experience it again and again. We're not opposing medium. I'm just trying to.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I love medium.
Exactly. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to have medium, you know, to go to see them, because there might be area that we don't have access, and they do, you know.
Absolutely. And right after you lose someone, like when I lost my son, I talked to the medium the next day because I heard him. We always had telepathic communication, he and I, and verifiable telepathic communication. So I actually heard him say, "Give me a voice." And I thought, how do I give him a voice? And I knew that I was so emotional, I couldn't hear him very well. And he had something he wanted to say. So I got the medium on the phone, and he was able to talk and explain everything to us. And that was so very, very wonderful because he explained, for one, that he was supposed to leave that day. He shot himself. But he was supposed to leave that day anyway in a car accident. And that he was on a life extension. He was supposed to die when he was 15. And so we had him longer than we thought. And so that was in itself very healing. And also just being able to get an explanation. He explained how he had gotten in with, he was trying to self-medicate from something he had been through, a breakup that was really difficult. And he had started self-medicating with ketamine. And he had gotten addicted to it. And then he had gotten into a bad group and gotten into other drugs. And he had just gotten so far into the drug thing that he basically blew his mind. And so he was able to explain to us about what had happened because we had no clue. This was my brilliant son, a top engineering student at UW. He was one of the most accomplished people you ever met in your life. I could just name off one thing after the other that he was able to do. We get this phone call at midnight saying he was dead with no warning. We had no idea. He never acted like he was on drugs a day in his life. So this gave us the shock, and nobody understood what happened. And when he was able to communicate to us and tell us what had happened, why it had happened, and tell us that he was going to die anyway, and that he was supposed to leave earlier and stayed longer, it totally changed it for us. Not that we don't miss him, not that I don't still cry buckets once in a while, because I miss him physically. He's not here, can't go kayaking together. But I can talk to him, and I can hear from him. And I know that he's good, and I know his path. And it's been very interesting, his path. Because of the suicide, it put him in a different place, a place that I wasn't familiar with. Because I'd always gone to the spirit realm, and when I take my clients, I'd always gone to the spirit realm. But he went to a different place in the spirit realm. And he was held there, and he had to go through a lot of exercises to help him understand that he may not take his life, that that is not allowed, and that it's not in his highest good. So once he got through all of those, then he returned to where we are, where we normally go when we do LBL, or where I went. But before that, they held him out, and he was not allowed free will to do a lot of things like we would be allowed to do until he understood that, and until he reviewed his life in infinite detail.
Thank you so much.
That was fascinating.
That incredible story. It just really humbles us. And each time when I learn a new story, that I just say, well, I don't know a thing. I don't know a thing about healing, about, this other realms. And what can I say? It may not be true to others. So we just humbly observe and watch and listen, be attentive, be present. Thank you for sharing that incredible story.
So welcome, and I can't say how much more the development of spirituality for each and every person is such a blessing. If I hadn't developed myself to where I had, I wouldn't be able to talk to him. And I'll tell you a funny story just personally. My son was very spiritual. He was a Buddhist at 13. He became Buddhist. And he was just really connected to me in that way because we shared spirituality like no one else in our family. And so we had that deep connection. And so when he was on the other side, I was able to connect to him so well. And he was able to come in and just kind of pop in. And so one day I'm doing a session. The person's in LBL. They're talking to their guide. They have had an issue with their father all of their life. They thought their father did not love them. The father has come in. He's talking to his father, and his father's explaining that he was in a war, and he was so damaged that he emotionally couldn't give him any more. All he could do was physically support him with money, but he couldn't love because he was so damaged. And the client was healing his pain of his father not loving him and feeling the love of his father come through spirit, through his father now in spirit. And the guide is there helping facilitate that. So the four of us are all facilitating this. My son hops in on the other side of the room and says, Mom, this is what you do? Oh my goodness, I never understood it when I was in an embodiment. But this is awesome. And I said, Alex, I can't talk to you right now. I have got to pay attention. But thank you.
Wow, it's just, you know, bonus on top of another bonus, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yes, the more we develop, the more we have, the more we can develop and the more we'll have.
I'd love to have that experience for one day to have my. I think he might understand what exactly I do. He or may not, even though he's a seasoned, a significant meditator, if I may say. So we're doing a spiritual work together. But I think he gets the gist, but he doesn't quite understand exactly what I do. But never mind. We just be. We just be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I hope that we'll have that.
Yes. Life just as is moves on continuously and then happens itself, and we are all perfectly good, perfectly loved. And
Always.
you have done some podcasts and radio shows in the past.
I have some. They're mostly on the internet.
Where do people find those resources?
Just Google for one, and
Yeah.
then my website, tonyaswan.com.
It's on your website.
Some of it, lots on Google.
Wonderful. We've got a lot of diamonds and jewels from you today. Thanks for sharing your stories.
You have some amazing stories.
Not as amazing as yours. I thought my life is pretty.
Oh, I thought yours were wonderful.
It's a pretty. It's really after learning other therapists, other people, individual stories. It was just really humbled me as I said that. My pain is not that much at all compared to many people. Many. I mean, I have not experienced any grief. Any people left me. The only thing that we've been working through in this body was love. Who isn't? This is a love story.
That's the human condition, and that's the things that we face as humans.
That's it. To me, I thought, well, this is a fraud. You are nobody.
I say to people with that, study the Gottman work. Dr. John Gottman's work at UW here is fabulous for helping us understand why do we fight. Because what we fight about is not what we're fighting about. We're fighting about a dream of our life and what we want it to be. And when something opposes that dream, then we can't accept it.
I love that. And what's the title?
It's Making Marriage Work by Dr. John Gottman.
Making Marriage Work. Yeah.
Yes, I'm reading right now the one that's called Fight Right. His wife and he wrote it, and that's his newest work. But I use this a lot myself and in my practice. Gottman's work is very, very good.
Wonderful. And your stories are so touching.
Oh, thank you.
Very intimate story about your family, your son, your father. We learned so much from your sharing today. Really deep gratitude.
Oh, thank you. It was wonderful to get to know you.
If you have one last message to the audience, what would that be?
Love. Love is the key. It is. We've heard it and we've heard it, but it is being in that space of love and bringing ourselves out of all the other stuff. Doing what my teacher said, step back into your soul, step back into your love, and look at things from a spiritual perspective. Look with spiritual eyes. You'll see a different picture.
Love yourself and love is all we hear. Love heals. Thank you so much, Tonya, for your love. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you. Namaste.
And to the audience, thanks for watching and stay tuned for our next episode.